All right, a beautiful Monday to you. How are you doing wherever you are watching us? This is Breaking Today. My name is Frederick Mwitiriri. Our sign language interpreter tonight is Teresia Washira, and these are the highlights. MPs Dende Nyoro and Alice Wahome present themselves before the DCI for questioning over Muranga chaos as leaders react. As the world marks WorldTeachers Day, tertiary institutions and universities in Kenya resume. Council of Governors team up with tea farmers to reject regulations proposed by Ministry of Agriculture. All right, welcome to the broadcast. And before we start tonight, we are going to do it different. Starting tonight, Clifford Dombe, as you can see him, will be joining us to do the business stories. So stay tuned. Later on in this bulletin, we'll be introducing Clifford Dombe. Don't go anywhere now. Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha has said that schools will reopen in phases, speaking at Nyeri National Polytechnic after conducting a tour of various institutions in central Kenya. Magoha has said that learners should prepare resumption of schools. The CS, who refused to field questions from journalists, has said that reopening of technical institutions is an indicator that the government will reopen learning institutions, although in phases. He has said that learners should have hope of resuming their studies in bits in due course. Thousands of learners are still at home, with stakeholders at loss when they will likely resume learning.
And then you dispose it. Then wearing the reusable mask. We are calling it reusable because you are
The government has decided to start reopening in phases. And I think I want to leave it there. I was accompanied by Mheshimiwa Nyeri, very proud indeed that this being the best national polytechnic, you people also can judge it by what you have seen.
All right, just to remind you, we are live on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube as Switch TV Kenya. Moving on, universities have today reopened officially following the announcement by Education Cabinet Secretary George Magoha that universities can now reopen for phased teaching. This happens as the world is celebrating teachers around the globe at the time where many countries are fighting the coronavirus pandemic. Many teachers have been rendered jobless within the country after the Ministry of Education announced the closure of school as a way of curbing the surge in coronavirus.
As the universities reopen today, the situation seems dire. The environment is deserted. Few students are reported back to school. Kenyan universities and colleges, which were closed in March over COVID-19, are gearing towards full resumption. The institutions are reopening progressively for all other courses with full adherence to the Health Ministry guidelines on the prevention of COVID-19, including social distancing and provision of disinfection booths.
Most of the official communication we get via our students' email, and we don't have any information. The last information we had was of continuation of our studies online, which for us is going to start next week on 12, and that is what we're still waiting for. Like, we are still ready for online. So we are ready for both physical and online, whichever they choose is still okay for us.
The reopening happens at a time where the world is celebrating teachers who have become even more vulnerable during the coronavirus pandemic. Most of the teachers have lost their jobs and are left with the only hope that one day schools are going to reopen and resume completely. On this historic occasion, the Kenya National Union of Teachers applauded all teachers who, despite numerous challenges, have dutifully given impeccable contribution in shaping the society.
As the day provides a platform for tutors to raise awareness about the role they play in providing quality education and lifelong learning. The teaching profession should enjoy academic freedom in discharge of professional duties.
The issue of teacher leadership in relation to crisis response is not just timely, but also important in terms of the contributions that teachers have recently made to provide remote learning, support vulnerable populations, reopening of schools, and ensuring that learning gaps in the curriculum are mitigated.
This World Day is a day set aside to celebrate and understand the use of ILO and UNESCO recommendations of 1966 concerning the status of teachers.
Teachers have a right to continue with their academic studies, and they must be recognized by the employer. That is within ILO. But here at Teacher Service Commission, that is being discontinued. That your degree certificates and masters mean nothing. They have come up with what we call productivity, so that you are promoted. And that is where we have parted ways.
I wish to urge all
The teachers have celebrated their day with the theme, Teachers Leading in Crisis and Reimagining the Future.
Solidarity forever.
As with every phase of relaxation in lockdown and schools reopen, teachers will have to play an increasingly significant role. It will be a Herculean task filling the learning gaps as the future of millions of children are at stake, and teachers are at the center, making sure that no child is left. Andrew Kero, Switch TV in Nairobi.
Thank you, Andrew. Now to matters politics, where Kiharu Member of Parliament Dede Nyoro and his Kandara counterpart Alice Wahome have vowed not to honor summons by Inspector General of Police Hilary Mutyambai concerning skirmishes that were witnessed in Keno Town, Murang'a County yesterday. The two, during a press briefing, have said security agents were aware of who caused the fracas before the church event, which was attended by the Deputy President William Ruto. And as Nyakundi Calvin is reporting, leaders in Murang'a have insisted that the chaos was stage managed.
Ndindi and Wahome have accused leaders who ferried youth from Thika to disrupt the event and taint the name of the Deputy President. The two, who are staunch supporters of the Deputy President, were reacting after a number of elected leaders accused them of being behind the chaos.
Na hii system na deep state, kwani kazi yake ni gani? Jana walikuwa wanachoma matairi kama polisi wamesimama hivi wakipigia saruti. My friends, kwani kuchoma tairi ilikuwa sign of peace? Ya kwamba walianza kurusha tear gas vile raia wa Keno walianza kuwafukuza. I have not received any summons. I have only read Twitter handles, Twitter accounts.
We are waiting for an apology from you, Inspector General Mutyambai. Wacha kututisha hapo ukituita huko Murang'a, huko Nyeri. Na mnagani wewe bwana? You better go back to school with your police officers. If you do not have the people who came here to disrupt a function that is presided over by the Deputy President, second in command in this country.
Nyoro and Wahome were main organizers of the occasion, with leaders trading blames of whom sponsored youth to cause chaos.
Kwa hivyo, kulingana na sisi, hata wale hawajasoma sheria, inaonyesha dalili ni nani walikuwa nahusika na hiyo kitendo. Na kuja hapa bila kujulisha wale watu viongozi wamechaguliwa kwa National Assembly.
Speaking elsewhere, church leaders drawn from different denominations in Murang'a have condemned the incident and asked politicians to tolerate each other.
I would like to request all our leaders to exercise some tolerance in their activities, because this country, we have different opinions and ideas, and we have to give room for every idea, every opinion, no matter where somebody comes from, no matter which tribe, so that we cannot have such events happening elsewhere in our country.
The leaders, led by Bishop John Gathuma of Redeemed Gospel Church, have accused police of hurling tear gas to the church, saying the incident could lead to injuries. They urged Murang'a South Police Commander to apologize to members of the church who went through a lot of humiliation. Nyakundi Kelvin, Switch TV.
And from that particular story, I'm asking, do you think the police service is being used by politicians? Do you think the police service is being used by the politicians? Talk to us on 111 444 111. We are live on Facebook. You can make your comment. You're live on Twitter. And on YouTube, you'll find us as Switch TV Kenya. Moving on. The Tanga Tanga faction of Jubilee Party have accused some top government officials and political elites from central Kenya of funding the chaos that were witnessed yesterday in Murang'a County. However, ODM Party has accused the Deputy President and his allies of orchestrating the chaos. Ivy Kavai with more.
In the aftermath of the kennel clashes that left 2 people dead and several others injured, the Tanga faction have come out pointing fingers at some top government officials and politicians for funding the chaos.
What kind of a country is this where the victims are blamed for atrocities meted out on them? It is obvious that they want to create a narrative that absolves them from their constitutional and legal responsibility. Those who planned and funded the violence are known and are obviously under the protection of the police and their masters in the Ministry of Interior.
It is the state that is sponsoring this violence, and I say that without any fear of contradiction. It is state-sponsored, but they want to point fingers elsewhere. How possible would it be that Ndindi Nyoro, Alice Wahome, invite the deputy president to a church? They command the OCPD to walk into church, grab the microphone from the bishop, and ask the congregants to get out of church. Tear gas Christians inside the church.
The leaders are now calling for the international community to step in and salvage the situation before it's too late. However, the ODM party has accused the deputy president and his allies for orchestrating the chaos.
Nachukua advantage ya vijana kwa sababu pengine uchumi iko mbaya, wanawapatia pesa kidogo ya kuenda kufurisha mkutano wa kanisa kama ule ulikuwa jana.
William Ruto is too angry, too bitter, and too entitled to be the president of this country. Unless we want to destroy Kenya and let it go the direction of other countries we know in Africa.
Elsewhere, Machakos Governor Alfred Mutua has condemned the violence witnessed in Murang'a.
Ni jambo la aibu sana, na pia jambo ambalo linakiuka akili kwa vijana kutumiwa na wanasiasa kulete vurugu za kisiasa, na hao wanaume na wanawake wa vijana ndio wanauawa.
Tuachilie demokrasia ifanye kazi, kila mtu auze sera yake. Kama naibu wa rais anaenda Murang'a na wewe hutaki kusikia mambo yake, si uache yeye aongee, na mwenye unataka pia atakuja.
Earlier today, the deputy president also condemned the violence. Ivy Kavai, Switch TV.
The Kenyan government has received a donation from the US government to curb the COVID-19 pandemic in the country. Speaking during the daily corona briefing, US Ambassador Kael Makata issued 200 ventilators to be used by the needy hospitals immediately as Kenya recorded the least number of infections today.
As Kenya continues flattening the curve, well-wishers are still pumping in more donation to contain the spread of virus. Ambassador Kael Makata has reiterated that the relationship between Kenya and the US is still strong.
With the outset of the deadly COVID-19 pandemic, USAID has been an important partner in Kenya's response. We've worked with the government of Kenya and local and international organizations to provide equipment, increase testing, and enhance research capacity. Our programs have improved water, sanitation, and hygiene infrastructure, ensured children have access to an education, helped keep Kenyans employed, and bolstered the systems that bring food from farms to markets.
Ventilators donated today will be a good boost to the ICU coronavirus patient in the country. This comes in after counties raised the alarm on shortage of drugs in the public hospitals in all counties, Kisumu leading. In the last 24 hours, a sample test of 500
However, studies are being conducted globally, including by our own scientists here in the country, to not only come up with a vaccine, but also on establishing a firm understanding of the epidemiology and behavioral pattern of the spread of this virus so that we could understand it better and deal with it better.
In the last 24 hours, a sample test of 595. 22 new cases were recorded. Number of the cases in the country stands at 39,499. Unfortunately, 4 people succumbed to death, leading to death toll number to 735 and 376 covered. Nairobi and Mombasa counties leads in the spread of coronavirus. Mwaluse Meshak, Switch TV, Nairobi.
All right, my director, Don, the MC, Guru, Hype, all that. He's telling me we are going to take a short break. Now, I'm asking you this question. Do you think the police service is being used by politicians? Talk to us on 111 444 111. We are taking a short break. We'll be back with more in a short while.
All right, it's time for business. My name is Clifford Ndobi. Let's get all the top stories making headlines today. The Council of Governors now wants the Ministry of Agriculture to withdraw the tea regulations that were earlier proposed. The COG is claiming that the proposed policy regulations and standards negate the violate the principles of devolution, and is demanding for the Ministry of Agriculture to withdraw the implementation of the regulations. This comes as the Ministry of Agriculture calls for public participation in the bid to implement the contested regulations for the farmers. Vicky Mugambi now has the story in details.
Monday afternoon, the Council of Governors strongly condemned the proposed tea regulations by the Ministry of Agriculture and argued for an immediate withdrawal.
The regulations which we are directing our farmers in the tea growing counties to reject in total.
In the meeting attended by governors from tea-growing counties, the council also asked the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock, Fisheries and Cooperatives to commence the process of reviewing the AFA Acts in the Constitution with the county governments to ensure the conformity with the Constitution.
The proposed regulation will take us back to the colonial days of governmental control over tea matters. These regulations are illegal and commercially unsound as they roll back the gains of economic liberalization. There is also over-concentration of central government in the proposal being made.
The proposed regulations have been rejected by the Kenya Tea Development Agency, KTDA, in an endless back and forth with the Ministry of Agriculture and the CS Peter Munya repeatedly throwing jabs at the agency. In a document, some of the proposed regulations that are strongly rejected are, and I quote, "A person who intends to establish a commercial tea nursery shall apply for registration to the county government whereby intend to establish tea nursery from AFA CG A1 as set out in the first schedule. A commercial tea nursery shall submit annual returns to the respective county government with a copy of authority in Form AFA CG A3 to set out in the first schedule. A person who intends to carry on the business of tea auction organizers shall apply registration to the authority or renew their registration in Form AFA TDQ1 set out in the first schedule." Vicky Mugambi reporting for Switch TV.
All right, thank you, Vicky Mugambi, for that story. Elsewhere, after decades of manual operations, the Kenya Revenue Authority has today begun digitalization of services through the launch of its KRA M-Services app. The app is expected to bolster its efforts in widening the tax bracket even further, as well as make it easier for Kenyans to file their taxes. The state agency has also said that over the years, it has dedicated the month of October to honor and appreciate all taxpayers for their invaluable contribution to the government's revenue.
If someone presents to you a tax compliance certificate, through this mobile platform, you can check the validity of that certificate. You can also check the validity of PIN certificates. If someone presents to you a PIN certificate that is valid or not valid, you can actually use this platform to check the validity of that. So that was one of the first features that we delivered. And then in the month of March, we made it available, the feature for filing turnover tax. And also for turnover tax, after consultation with the taxpayers, we have small traders who do not keep a very clear record of their transactions. So we enable people to file turnover tax on a daily basis. And then at the end of the month, it's able to then compute the taxes that are due. So unlike the previous dispensational situation where you had to file monthly turnover tax, now you can file it daily.
Finally, U.S. Ambassador to Kenya, Kyle Makata, and Acting Administrator of the U.S. Agency for International Development, also known as USAID, John Brasser, highlighted 3 recently announced activities under the White House-led Women Global Development and Prosperity. Now, this initiative partners with the private sectors and invests in Kenya women entrepreneurs and women-owned businesses. WGDP support over 1.4 million US dollars, which is equivalent to 152 million Kenya shillings for the WGDP partnership to train Kenyan women entrepreneurs in collaboration with apps will help Kenyan women launch small-scale businesses.
Women are a tremendous force in our economies, and this program will help create an enabling environment, give them the tools to access financial services. Part of creating an enabling environment for women in business is partnering with the private sector and not relying on government funds. You've heard me say this before. Sometimes government needs to just get out of the way and let the private sector do the work. This also increases accountability and transparency for both those contributing and those receiving assistance. I'm excited that the White House has taken an interest in Kenya and look forward to seeing many more women take the lead in business and other spheres of society in the years to come.
All right, that's all we had for you from the business world. It's now time for sports with Frederick Muitiriri. Yesterday, Liverpool walked alone and the Theatre of Dreams is becoming a theatre of theatrics. Frederick Muitiriri, what do you have in the sports world?
They're called the Red Devils. We'll be talking about them in a short while. Stay tuned. Sports is coming up.